Hey folks, Robbie Payne here again with Chrome Unboxed. Today, doing a side-by-side comparison of the HP Chromebook 14 and the Toshiba Chromebook. The Toshiba Chromebook, the one here on the right, if those of you who don't know, you can watch the full review also on the channel, so you can be awesome if you like this video. You can also subscribe and see all the other Chromebook comparisons and reviews there. But you'll see that there's a full review up of that device and the HP 14, so you can really get down into more detail with each one. The Toshiba is a 13.3 inch device versus the 14 inch, and so probably on the camera you can see a slight bit of difference between the two screen sizes, but it's pretty negligible. And overall, even looking through the camera lens right now, you can tell the difference in the devices is pretty negligible. And one of the things you're going to notice in this side-by-side comparison will probably be shorter than some of the other ones, as the Toshiba review is also shorter than some of the other reviews. Because what we're starting to run into here is a repetition in Chromebooks. And so one of the best things about Chromebooks is the fact that they're all running the same OS. I just got the update on both of these guys today, so they're both running Chrome 33 stable. And it's the exact same thing. The experience across the board is always the same. I can grab my wife's Samsung Chromebook, I can log into any Chromebook I get and get the same experience as far as the operating system. And so that's a huge boon and an awesome part of being a Chrome OS user. However, when it comes down to reviewing and side-by-side comparisons and things like this, there's really not a ton of differences to deal with. And so I don't want to waste a lot of your time going into detail about a bunch of things that we've talked about 100 other times. But I want to point out some of the usage differences that I've found. And over the last couple, about 10 days, I used the Toshiba as my primary working device. Now what I do is website design, so coding and basic coding, CSS, HTML5, PHP, that kind of stuff. Nothing too intense. Most of the things I do live on the web, so Chromebooks work really well for me. But at the same time, I'm going to have 5 to 7, 8 tabs open at a time. I also dual boot into Ubuntu so that I can have, such right here, I've got FileZilla open, having FileZilla in Inkscape in Ubuntu. So I'm not running a ton of stuff in that secondary desktop. So I just wanted to give you kind of my usage pattern. So if you're somebody who really wants to boot into Ubuntu and run tons of stuff, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, and vice versa. If you're someone who stays in Chrome and has 2 tabs open and that's about it, take that with a grain of salt as well. Because I usually have 5 to 7 tabs open. I have maybe an image editor, which I've found and really loved. This little guy here is Pixlr TouchUp. Just for resizing, editing photos, cropping them, all that kind of quick stuff that I need to do a lot because I'm dealing with images on websites a lot, so I need to deal with specific ratios and everything. I have that open. Usually I have Google Music or Spotify running in the background, casting up to a Chromecast to play the music, and so that's kind of my scope as far as work goes. That being said, that amount of work, so like I said, 5 to 7 tabs, a couple other programs in the background, and probably Ubuntu running with Inkscape and FileZilla going on the other side of things. I did not run into any issues whatsoever with the 2 gigs of RAM on the Toshiba. From those of you who haven't seen the reviews or have forgotten, the main difference in these 2 guys really comes down to this one has 2 gigs of RAM versus the 4 gigs in this one. And this one does have the LTE equipped radio in it as well. Or no, I'm sorry, not LTE, it's HSPA Plus 4G from T-Mobile, which comes in handy in pinches. I'm telling you, it really has saved my butt a couple times. However, that really is the only hardware difference we're looking at here. As you can see from the video right now, the screens are really, really similar. I'd give a slight nod, I'm saying a really slight nod to the Toshiba Chromebook on the screen. A, it's a little bit smaller, so the pixels are denser. And B, the contrast ratio is a little better. I don't know how well you can tell that on the camera, but the contrast ratio definitely is better over here. So the darks look a little darker while the brights look a little brighter. And so I can tell that just looking at them right here. If I glance back and forth, I see it. Spending time in front of it for the day, no real issue. Same thing goes with the battery life. We're seeing a lot of similarities here as well. We're showing almost 9 hours left on a full charge, and over here 7.5 hours left on a full charge. Keep in mind I do have Ubuntu running over here, and I actually had just pulled this off the charger, and I've been using it, so it's probably basing that on being used, whereas this guy was asleep. I just updated him and he was charged. So but realistically, 8 to 9 hours on both of these machines, pretty doable, pretty normal battery life between the two. So let's talk about hardware, because really when we talk about Chromebooks, that's really the differentiating factor, because internally they're both the Haswell 2955U, and so they're both running the Haswell Celeron processor. We have the difference in the RAM, obviously that's different, but other than that, the internal part is pretty much the same. So I'm not going to get into running a bunch of stuff on them because they both run it great. They both load websites identically well. So you can see those things in the individual reviews. I don't want to spend time doing those things in this particular comparison. Really want to talk about hardware, because right now that's the differentiator when it comes to Chromebooks. That's the way that hardware manufacturers can really say, hey, look, I want to make something awesome. And this is where I will put my hope in the fact that we're going to see a mid-range Chromebook sometime this year. I'm really hoping. I got my fingers crossed for the new Samsung or whatever Asus has coming down the pipe, or Lenovo. One of these companies, I'm waiting to see a device that falls in that $400 to $500 range and says, you know what, we're not going to compromise on any of the external hardware. So we're going to have an awesome keyboard. We're going to have an awesome trackpad. You're going to have an IPS panel. It's going to be better than 1366 by 768, which is what we see on everything, by the way. This is what we see on both of these guys. We're going to give you a 3 or 4 megapixel front-facing or 5 megapixel front-facing camera, so your Hangouts look amazing, rather than the 720p front-facing cameras we get on both of these guys. And so, again, right now there's just this kind of homogenous thing going on with Chromebooks, and hopefully that's going to be broken up pretty soon. We just see a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same performance, and the performance has been good. These Haswell devices perform great. Both of these guys perform really, really, really well. Really enjoy them. And as I said, a lot of people have been asking, does the 2 gig of RAM hinder you on the Toshiba? And I would have to honestly say I thought it was going to, and it doesn't. You can look, I have a video on my feed that talks about the 2 gig to 4 gig comparison, and I really put some stress on the machines. I was using an Acer C720p at the time, and so I really put some stress on them and pushed them harder than I normally do in a day's work. And yeah, you can see some differences at that point. But for me, as I kind of laid out my work, my normal work case, for me, it didn't really make that much of a difference. And so I wanted to start with the Chromebooks open, and so we could kind of talk about the similarities. I want to talk about a few of the differences. And again, coming back to this point again, the differences really end up being in the build quality. And so what we see now, again, I made a comment before about the screens. Slight nod to the Toshiba. Front-facing cameras have been identical, very usable, looks good, works for Hangouts. I had a couple Hangouts actually on the Toshiba as I was working with it. No problems whatsoever. It was great. When we talk about keyboards, again, this is a thing, and you'll hear this across all my videos. I haven't really been that disappointed in any Chromebook keyboard at this point. It's something that seems like manufacturers have just kind of gotten a hold of and really nailed. I had a lot of Windows notebooks that I went through that really had crummy keyboards, and it was staggering because I was paying $700, $800, $900 for these things, and the keyboards are just terrible. And so I don't know what was going on with that, but Chromebooks across the board have just had good keyboards. I don't have an issue with key travel. I don't have any issues with mistyping and everything like that. So travel across both of these is very similar. The keys have a nice feel to them, slightly texturized. It types well, and it's spacious. 13.3 inch form factor gives you plenty of room without squashing the keyboard. Matter of fact, if you're looking at both of these, you see a lot of the same amount of workspace here. And so for me, whether 14 versus 13.3, I didn't see a pro or a con in either one. I like the fact, and we'll get to it in a second, that the Toshiba is a little lighter because of its smaller size, but other than that, there's really no big deal there. Both of them have the kind of anti-fingerprint finish on them. This one over here has got a smooth finish to it, but it doesn't pick up fingerprints. And you can see me kind of wiping off some of the just stuff that collects on keyboards and workstations over time. But ultimately, neither one of them really collect fingerprints. This one has a completely matte finish around here. So is this one. You get this kind of aluminum-like texture, plastic here, definitely plastic. You can definitely tell that, but it looks nice. It's a handsome looking computer, and both of them are. They're both good looking Chromebooks. Trackpads on both, almost the exact same size, almost the exact same layout. I will say I have to still give the nod to the HP on this, and that's and again, just like with the screen, I'm talking about a slight nod. It's not much, but the HP seems to be a bit more responsive, and yeah, it's doing just fine. No hard touching here. It's pretty easy. And maybe part of that is in part due to the trackpad over here is a slightly textured feeling to it. Very, very, very little, but there's a slightly textured feeling to it. Let's load up something. We'll go to Google Plus. How about that? Just to show you, both of them load the render the page the exact same amount of time. So, and that's not a shock. And so once we get it loaded up here, okay, now we're loaded. You can see it's nice and responsive. The 2-finger scroll, you're going to see the same behavior over here. Nice and responsive with the 2-finger scroll. So, and 3 fingers up and down gives you your overview mode. And I had some problems with the Acer C720 with this. You know, it would just do it sometimes and not others. No problems with the 3-finger swipes, and I know that's partly is due to the sensitivity on the touchpads. So other than the fact that this one's a little bit texturized and this one's really, really smooth, very similar. I did every once in a while I noticed a sensitivity issue, like trying to do the 3-finger swipe between tabs. And it's working perfectly now. Like I said, it was a few times. No issues there, and I never have any issues on the HP 14 with that either. So again, keyboards, kind of a wash. Slight edge to the trackpad over here, slight edge to the display over here. The front-facing displays, again, a wash. And so, and again, I'm not going to get into the 2 gig versus 4 gigs of RAM. For my use case, again, surprised that it didn't affect me really at all. I didn't feel like I had to close things down and really manage anything. On the 14, I don't think about it ever, and so I figured I would run into some stuff on the Toshiba, and I did not. So we're going to close them and take a look around the hardware to kind of finish this thing out. Now from the top, you can kind of see where the size difference starts to come in, and we're talking pretty minimal amounts here. I'm going to place one on top of the other. And so that's kind of what you're looking at. Very, very minimal when it comes to size difference. The big difference I felt between the two is weight. And you can really feel that when you pick them up with one hand. The weight of the Toshiba is so much lighter feeling versus the HP. They both have a nice solid build to them. There's not a lot of creaking and clacking. There's a little wiggle, a little bend with the Toshiba. With the HP, not really much at all. Pretty nice and firm. Let's take a quick view around the sides. You get a couple of USB 3.0 ports, combo headphone, microphone jack, HDMI out. Nothing back here except some fans. SD charging slot, Kensington lock. And then the bottom, in the hole of the Toshiba is covered in these little dimples, and so it has a texture to it. I'm not a fan. I don't like it. I don't hate it, but I really don't like it. I really like the texture they used on the inside. Kind of just that matte aluminum-like finish. That was pretty nice. I'm not a huge fan of the dimples on the outside part or the bottom. And then, 4 rubber feet. Speakers on both are plenty loud. We'll come back to that in just a minute. But overall, the device feels good. It's pretty slim when we're talking about laptops. So it has a nice profile. It looks good on the table. All that kind of stuff. The cheapest part I felt about this guy is right back in here. You can see quite a bit of give there. And when the device is actually open, I can do that. Back here, it really just has this really cheap feel back here. And the reason I felt that a lot was when closing it and getting my fingers accidentally up under this. You can see how much play that has. It's kind of cheap feeling, but the hinges feel fine. So I don't, again, I'm nitpicking here, really nitpicking. We come to the HP, and you've seen this guy in many videos. He has stuck with me through all my Chromebooks. We have the 3.0 USBs here, HDMI, combo jack, Kensington lock. And then you get an additional 2.0 USB, then your SIM card slot, SD card slot, charging. Nothing across the back, kind of a slick little lip that comes out. Hold it that way, right there. Very reminiscent of the HP Envy line of notebooks. Nothing across the front really. Fans, feet, speaker grills, common fare here. And because of the way the hinge is built as one piece, you get a lot more solidarity here than you do with the Toshiba. Again, it does not mean that either one is better than the other. That really doesn't affect anything. So, as I'm going to give you a side-by-side with the speakers, real quick. If I had to, well, I do have to. I have to choose which one I want to keep. I can't just keep every Chromebook. I'm still going to keep my HP. That's the way it is. Like I said, the pros and the cons of the two, they really kind of outweigh one another. And so it's not as if the HP is overwhelmingly better than the Toshiba. It really isn't that. And so you may be looking at these and going, well, I don't like the colors of the HP, or I don't want to deal with a white laptop. I like the silver and black MacBook-esque look. Hey, go for the Toshiba. I really don't have anything bad to say about it, to be honest with you. Find something. It's got a little. But I do have to say, I really enjoy the HP. And people in videos before have said, oh, this guy really, HP wins everything. He loves it. But I do. I mean, I if the day comes that I review a Chromebook and I keep it and sell my HP, that'll be the sign that that I think it's a better device. But for right now, I really like the HP overall. But I really enjoyed the Toshiba 13 as well. And so, again, if I have to choose, and I do have to choose, I'm keeping the HP 14. That, again, is not to say don't buy the Toshiba. It's a piece of junk. It's a decent Chromebook. And this particular model with 4 gigs and the HSPA Plus radios is $350, and this one's $279. So there's a bit of a price gap there as well. So those things to consider. If you knock off $70 and that makes a big difference for you, then don't feel bad at all about getting the Toshiba. So here's the HP. Let's crank. Nice and tinny, but loud. So plenty of volume. They're laptop speakers, so. Definitely have to give the loudness and the fullness of the speakers to the Toshiba on this. So I don't know how often you're going to be listening to music straight from your laptop, but Toshiba has a little bit better speakers in my opinion. A little bit fuller sound and definitely a little bit louder. Neither one of them distorts at high volume, so that's pretty cool on both. Again, this is a tough one. It's tough, and it's getting to that point until we see some hardware manufacturers really decide to differentiate themselves in some way. Heard IPS panel, better speakers. That really is the big one for me, because everything else is great about Chromebooks. I've said 100 times, if I could get this device right here with an IPS display, at 1600 by 900, I don't think I could be satisfied anymore with anything else. I love everything else about it. So that being said, guys, just about a tie between these two, but I'm going to go with HP 14, and hopefully this has helped some of you make a decision. I've gotten some personal messages saying that you're waiting to see. I can fully say the Toshiba is a great device, and so if you're looking at it, you like the way it looks, you like Toshiba, you like, I don't know what else defines it other than those things, or you hate HP or something like that. hey, go for it. It's a great device. I would think I've seen online that they have opened it up, and there's room for more RAM, not user installable RAM, but there's room for the manufacturer to put more RAM in there. So heck, we might see a model with some wireless connectivity and more RAM come out for a little bit more money. So who knows? I haven't seen anything about that specifically, but we got a lot more stuff coming this year, many more Chromebooks, many more reviews. As soon as I get the Asus Chromebook, going to review that guy as well. So excited about 2014, excited about what's happening in Chromebooks in general. And if you like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe to see more videos. More subscriptions I get, the more chances I'll get to get my hands on more Chromebooks, and the more reviews I'll get to you guys, and the more of these guys you can see. And so appreciate you watching. Thanks for subscribing, those of you who have subscribed, and those who are going to subscribe. Continue to keep it locked on the channel, and we'll have more reviews coming. Thanks again. Till next time.